I am sitting in the house. My mother left me this small but warm place, filled with childhood memories. This kitchen corner where Mom used to cook, that window overlooking the garden she planted. Every inch of this space makes me feel close to her, even though she has been gone for 14 years. This is the only place where I still feel her presence, her love, her protection. But right now my father and stepmother are standing in front of me, demanding that I do the right thing and hand over this house to my pregnant stepsister. I never imagined they could go this far. The betrayal from your own blood hurts more than anything else in this world. Before I tell you how this nightmare unfolded, let me know where you are watching from. Drop your location in the comments below. And if you have ever dealt with toxic family members trying to take what is rightfully yours, hit that like button and subscribe to this channel, because you will definitely want to hear how this story ends. Because what happened next showed me just how far some people will go when greed takes over, and how karma has a way of settling scores nobody saw coming. Let me take you back to where it all began. I lost my mother when I was 11 years old. Cancer took her after a 2-year battle that drained everything from our family except the love she had for me. I still remember the last conversation we had in the hospital. Her frail hand holding mine, her voice barely a whisper. "This house is yours," she told me. "Promise me you will take care of it." I promised. I was just a kid, but I understood what she meant. This house was not just bricks and wood. It was her legacy, her way of making sure I always had a home. Her will was crystal clear. The house would be mine when I turned 18. My father, Tom, seemed devastated at first, but within months, that grief transformed into something else. Distance, coldness toward me. 18 months after Mom died, Dad remarried. He met Sandra at his workplace, some corporate office where she worked in human resources. Sandra had a 9-year-old daughter named Jessica. The wedding happened fast, too fast, for a 13-year-old kid still grieving his mother. I remember standing at that wedding wearing a suit that did not fit right, watching Dad smile wider than he had in months. Sandra acted friendly toward me at first, but I could sense the fakeness beneath her sugary words. The way her eyes would go cold when Dad was not looking. The way she would steer every conversation back to Jessica. Life under their roof became a lesson in inequality. Jessica got the biggest bedroom, the one with the bay window and the walk-in closet. I got the cramped room at the end of the hall, barely big enough for a bed and a desk. Jessica got new clothes every season, expensive toys, a laptop for her birthday. I wore hand-me-downs from cousins and learned to save every dollar from odd jobs. When I turned 14, I started delivering newspapers before school, then got a job bussing tables on weekends. Not because I wanted extra money for fun, because I needed money for basic things. Dad always had an excuse. "They have been through a lot too, Rich. Be understanding. You need to learn responsibility." Meanwhile, Jessica never lifted a finger. The signs of neglect were everywhere, but some moments cut deeper than others. My 15th birthday fell on a Saturday. I woke up expecting maybe a small acknowledgement, perhaps a card or a breakfast together. Instead, I found a note on the kitchen counter. "Gone out for the day with Sandra and Jessica. There is sandwich stuff in the fridge. Happy birthday." They went to some fancy restaurant 2 towns over because Jessica wanted to try their dessert menu. I ate a peanut butter sandwich alone and went to work my shift at the diner. When I graduated high school, Dad missed the ceremony entirely. Jessica had a basketball game the same evening, and apparently that took priority. I sat in that auditorium, watched other kids hug their parents after receiving their diplomas, and felt the empty seat next to me like a physical weight. College was another battle. I applied for scholarships, filled out financial aid forms by myself, worked 2 jobs to cover what the loans did not. Dad made it clear, "You are 18 now, time to be a man." No help was coming. Sandra made passive-aggressive comments about how I should be grateful they let me stay in their house rent-free during summers. Their house, not my childhood home. That house, the one Mom left me, had been rented out to strangers for 4 years, and then left vacant for another 3. Dad said he could not deal with maintaining it. The truth was, He never cared about preserving anything that reminded him of Mom. When I turned 22, fresh out of college with an engineering degree and a job offer from a local firm, I made a decision. I was moving back into my mother's house. The house that was legally mine, that had been sitting empty and neglected for years. Dad seemed almost relieved. One less uncomfortable presence in his new family portrait. Sandra smiled that fake smile and said she hoped I would visit often. Jessica barely looked up from her phone. I loaded my belongings into a borrowed truck and drove across town to the place I should have been living all along. The house was in rough shape. Years of renters and neglect had taken their toll. The paint was peeling. The roof leaked in 3 places. The hardwood floors were scratched and stained. And the garden, Mom once tended so carefully, had become a jungle of weeds. But I did not care. I spent the next 2 years pouring every spare moment and dollar into restoring it. I repainted every room, choosing colors I remembered from childhood. I fixed the roof myself, watching YouTube tutorials until I got it right. I refinished the floors on my hands and knees, sanding away the damage until the wood gleamed again. I cleared the garden and replanted her roses, her lavender, her daisies. I kept her furniture, the kitchen table where we ate breakfast together, the rocking chair where she read me stories, the picture frames holding photos of us, just us, before cancer and before Sandra. This house became more than my home. It became my sanctuary, my therapy, my connection to the person who loved me unconditionally. I worked hard at my job, got promoted twice, and lived simply. I did not need much. Just this space, these memories, and the peace of knowing I had honored my promise to Mom. Dad visited maybe 3 times in those first 3 years. Each visit lasted less than 30 minutes. He would glance around, make vague comments about the improvements, and then find an excuse to leave. Sandra never came at all. Jessica was busy with her own life, dating guys Dad disapproved of, and bouncing between part-time jobs. Then 3 weeks ago, everything changed. Dad called me on a Tuesday evening, his voice carrying that tone I recognized from childhood. The tone that meant he wanted something. "We need to talk about something important," he said. "Can we come over this weekend?" Something in my gut twisted, but I agreed. I figured maybe he wanted to finally have a real conversation, maybe try to rebuild some kind of relationship. I should have known better. I should have remembered that Tom only reached out when he needed something from me. And this time what he needed was bigger than I could have ever imagined. That Saturday evening I cleaned the house and brewed a pot of coffee. When the doorbell rang at 6:30 p.m., I opened the door to find not just Dad but Sandra and Jessica as well. Jessica looked exhausted, her pregnant belly obvious under a loose sweater. She was 5 months along, I later learned. Sandra walked in first, her eyes immediately scanning every room like she was appraising real estate. She touched the curtains, examined the refinished floors, peered into the kitchen. Dad looked uncomfortable, his hands shoved deep in his pockets. Jessica collapsed onto the couch, with a heavy sigh, complaining about how the tiny apartment she was renting had steep stairs and no elevator. I poured coffee, trying to make small talk, but the tension was suffocating. Finally, Dad cleared his throat and launched into what he had come to say. "Rich, you know Jessica is pregnant. She needs a proper home for the baby. This house is too big for one person. It would be perfect for Jessica and the baby's father." He said it so casually, as if he was asking me to loan him $20, not hand over my entire home. My home, the home my mother left specifically to me. I felt my chest tighten, anger rising like a tide. "This is my house," I said slowly. "Mom left it to me." Sandra jumped in immediately, her voice dripping with false concern. "Your mother would want her grandchild to grow up in a good home. This place is perfect for a young family. You are single. You could easily find an apartment. Think about what is best for everyone." Dad nodded along. "We are family, Rich. Family helps each other. This is what your mother would have wanted." I looked at Jessica, who had tears streaming down her face now. "I have nowhere else to go," she sobbed. "My boyfriend left me when he found out about the baby. I cannot afford anything better than that cramped apartment. I cannot raise a baby there. I thought that was the end of it. I was wrong. Over the next week, my phone became a weapon used against me. Dad called every single day, sometimes multiple times. His messages went from guilt-tripping to angry accusations. I sacrificed so much for you. You are being selfish. Your mother would be ashamed. Sandra sent long text messages, paragraphs, detailing Jessica's struggles, the baby's needs, how I was essentially condemning my niece or nephew to poverty by refusing to give up the house. Jessica started messaging me on Facebook, sending ultrasound photos with captions like, "Do you not care about your family? Your niece needs you." I blocked some numbers, but they just called from different ones. Sandra used her work phone. Dad borrowed phones from coworkers, and Jessica created new social media accounts to get around my blocks. Then the extended family got involved. My aunt Dad's younger sister called me one afternoon. "Tom told me what is going on. I cannot believe you would be so heartless. That poor girl is pregnant, and you will not help her." I tried to explain my side, but she cut me off. "Your mother would be ashamed of you." She hung up before I could respond. Dad had painted me as the villain, the selfish son who refused to help his struggling stepsister. He left out the part where they were demanding, "I give up my home," the part where this house was left to me by my dying mother, the part where he had neglected me my entire childhood. The following Saturday morning, I woke up to pounding on my front door. It was 7 a.m. I stumbled downstairs, opened the door, and found Dad and Sandra standing there with a contractor. "We thought we would help you get the house ready for Jessica," Sandra announced brightly, pushing past me. The contractor started measuring rooms, talking about knocking down walls to create a nursery. I was so shocked I just stood there for a moment before my brain kicked in. "Get out," I said. "All of you. This is my property. You cannot just show up here unannounced with contractors." Dad's face turned red. "You have changed, Rich. You are not the son I raised." Something inside me snapped. "You barely raised me at all. You were too busy playing happy family with Sandra and Jessica to notice I existed. Now you want my house. Get out." They left, but Dad's parting words chilled me. This is not over. That week I confided in my old college roommate Derek, who had become a real estate attorney. I told him everything, expecting maybe some moral support. Instead, Derek got serious. "Document everything he said. Every call, every text, every visit. And check your property records online. Right now." Something in his tone scared me. I pulled up the county recorder's website that night and searched my address. My blood ran cold. There was an attempt to file a deed change the previous week. Someone had tried to add Tom's name as a co-owner of my property. The filing had been rejected due to missing signatures, but the attempt was there in black and white. I called Dad immediately, my hands shaking. "Did you try to add your name to my house?" "Deed." There was a long pause. Sandra said, "It was just a formality. To protect the family asset. Protect the family asset. This is fraud, Dad. This is my house. Mom left it to me. You have no right." He tried to backtrack, stammering excuses, but I hung up. My heart was racing. They had actually tried to steal my house legally. They had tried to forge documents to make it theirs. This was not just pressure anymore. This was criminal. An hour later, Sandra called. Her voice was no longer sweet or concerned. It was ice-cold and threatening. "Your father has every right to that house. He paid the mortgage for years before you were old enough to own anything. Jessica needs this house more than you do. You are being selfish, and if you do not cooperate, we will take legal action." "Legal action," I shot back. "You just committed fraud. You forged my signature. Sandra, I could have you arrested." "We will see about that," she hissed and hung up. I sat in the dark living room, my mother's rocking chair creaking slightly as I processed what was happening. My father and stepmother were not just asking anymore. They were trying to steal my home, and they were willing to break the law to do it. The next morning, I called Derek back and asked for a referral to the best real estate and family attorney he knew. He gave me the name Angela Martinez, a lawyer with a reputation for being tough and thorough. I met with Angela 2 days later, bringing every document I had. My mother's will, the property deed tax payment records, receipts from all the renovations I had done, and screenshots of every threatening message from Dad and Sandra. Angela reviewed everything carefully, her expression growing more serious with each page. "You have ironclad ownership," she finally said. "The will is legally binding. The property is solely in your name, and you have been paying all expenses for years. The attempted deed change was completely illegal. If they forged your signature, that is a felony. We can file a cease and desist immediately, and I strongly recommend you report the forgery attempt to the police." I felt a wave of relief mixed with sadness. It had come to this, legal action against my own father. But Angela was right. They had crossed a line. She drafted a cease and desist letter that day detailing all the harassment and making it clear that any further attempts to claim my property would result in criminal charges and a restraining order. The letter was sent via certified mail to both Tom and Sandra. While waiting for their response, I started gathering more evidence. I saved every voicemail, every text message, every email. I had 37 separate instances of harassment documented over 2 weeks. I also checked the legality of recording phone calls in my state. It was a one-party consent state, which meant I could legally record conversations without the other person's knowledge. When Sandra called the next time spewing more threats about taking me to court, I recorded every word. Her voice dripped with venom as she told me I was ruining Jessica's life and that I would regret not cooperating. Then I went to the police station and filed a formal report about the attempted deed fraud. The officer took my statement and copies of all the documents showing the forgery attempt. A detective was assigned to the case. Within days, they discovered that Sandra had attempted to use a forged signature, a copy of my signature apparently scanned from some old document and digitally altered. The detective called me to confirm I had not signed anything. I had not. Sandra was now under criminal investigation for forgery and attempted fraud. This was serious. This could mean jail time. Dad and Sandra hired their own lawyer, someone who sent Angela a letter, claiming that Tom had rights to the property because he had raised me and supported me. Angela's response was swift and devastating. She pointed out that Tom had willingly agreed to his late wife's will, signing documents that transferred full ownership to me upon my 18th birthday. He had relinquished any claim years ago. There was no legal basis for their demand. Moreover, the harassment and attempted fraud gave us grounds for a restraining order if they did not cease contact immediately. Their lawyer went quiet after that, but Sandra was not done. She took to social media, posting in local community groups about how her pregnant daughter was being turned away by her cruel stepbrother. She painted me as a monster, someone who had a big, empty house and refused to help family in need. She left out every detail about the harassment, the forgery, the threats. People who did not know the full story commented with outrage. "How could you do that to a pregnant woman? Shame on you. Family should help family." I watched the comments pile up, resisting the urge to defend myself publicly. Instead, I contacted the group administrator, privately providing evidence of Sandra's harassment and the ongoing legal case. The admin reviewed everything and removed Sandra's post, issuing a warning about defamation. Some people saw through her lies, but others believed her narrative. Then late one night, my phone rang. It was Jessica. She was crying so hard I could barely understand her. "Rich, I am so sorry. I did not know. Mom tried to forge documents. I swear I did not know. She kept telling me you would come around, that you would do the right thing. I am so scared about this baby. I do not have anyone." We talked for over an hour. Jessica admitted that Sandra had been manipulating her, pushing her to guilt-trip me, feeding her lines about family obligation. Jessica herself had not wanted to take my house. She just needed help and did not know where else to turn. Her boyfriend had left when she told him about the pregnancy. She was working a minimum wage job and could barely afford her rent. I felt genuine sympathy for her situation, but I also knew I could not sacrifice my home. I can help you find resources, I told her. There are programs for single mothers, shelters with support services, government assistance. I will help you navigate all of that. But my house is not an option. It never was. Jessica understood. She apologized again and promised she would stop letting Sandra use her as a pawn. She sounded exhausted, but also relieved, like she had been carrying a weight she could finally put down. After we hung up, I sat in the silence of my living room and realized that Jessica was not the real enemy here. Sandra was, and Dad for going along with it all. A few days later, Dad showed up at my door alone. No Sandra, no Jessica, just him looking older and more tired than I remembered. "Son, can we work this out?" he asked. I let him in, but I did not offer coffee this time. "Work what out, Dad? You tried to steal my house. Sandra tried to forge legal documents. There is nothing to work out." He sat heavily on the couch. "I made mistakes, Rich. I know I was not there for you after your mom died. Sandra and I. We got caught up in our own thing. But she is my wife. I have to support her. You are my son," I said. But that never mattered, did it? Jessica's basketball games mattered more than my graduation. Sandra's feelings mattered more than mine. And now my house matters more to you than my well-being. He did not have an answer. He just sat there, staring at his hands. Finally, he stood up and left without another word. The legal consequences came swiftly after that. The district attorney decided to prosecute Sandra for attempted fraud and forgery. The evidence was overwhelming. She had to appear in court facing criminal charges that could result in jail time. Tom had to hire an expensive defense attorney for her, draining their savings. The stress of the legal battle, combined with the financial burden, tore their marriage apart. They fought constantly. I heard about it through Jessica, who called me occasionally with updates. Tom blamed Sandra for coming up with the scheme. Sandra blamed Tom for not being a good enough father to convince me to just hand over the house. Their perfect blended family facade crumbled. Sandra was convicted. The judge sentenced her to 6-month suspended sentence, 200 hours of community service, and 3 years of probation. She also had to pay restitution for my legal fees, which came to $8,000. She now had a criminal record that affected her job prospects. Within months of the conviction, Tom filed for divorce. The legal bills, the shame, the constant fighting had destroyed whatever they had built together. Tom had to sell their house to pay off debts and moved into a small apartment across town. Sandra moved in with a friend. Jessica, wanting nothing to do with her mother's schemes, cut contact with Sandra and focused on preparing for her baby. Jessica ended up giving birth to a healthy baby girl she named Emma. She refused help from Sandra, still angry about being manipulated. Instead, she applied for every assistance program available, got into subsidized housing for single mothers, and found a part-time job with flexible hours. She also found a roommate, another single mom, and they helped each other with childcare. It was not easy, but Jessica was standing on her own feet for the first time in her life. She sent me a text message a few months after Emma was born. "Thank you for not letting me be part of Mom's scheme. It taught me I am stronger than I thought. I have to take care of myself and Emma now. I am grateful for that lesson." Tom tried to reconnect with me several times after the divorce. He would call, leaving voicemails about how he finally understood that he had failed me. "I see now that I was not there for you. I am sorry, Rich. I really am." Part of me wanted to accept his apologies to rebuild some kind of relationship, but the wounds were too deep and too old. "I needed you when I was a kid," I told him during one brief phone call. "I needed you at my birthday, at my graduation, when I was struggling to pay for college. I do not need you now." I did not cut him off completely. I just kept a firm distance. He lives alone now in his small apartment, estranged from Sandra, barely seeing Jessica because she is busy with Emma, and kept at arm's length by me. It was the karma he earned through years of neglect and then a final act of greed. Even though I had won, even though my house was secure and the legal battles were over, I still felt empty for a while. The victory did not taste sweet. It tasted like loss. I had lost my father. Not that I ever really had him, and I had lost any illusion of having a normal family. The first night after the court case ended, I sat in my mother's rocking chair and cried. "This is what freedom feels like," I asked the empty room. "Why does it hurt so much?" There was no answer, except the creak of old wood and the whisper of wind through the garden. Healing did not come quickly. It came in small, deliberate steps. I threw myself into work, taking on extra projects and earning a promotion within 6 months. The raise helped, but more importantly, the distraction helped. I started running every morning, pounding the pavement until my legs ached and my mind cleared. I continued improving the house, adding a reading nook in the attic, and converting part of the garage into a small workshop. Every nail I hammered, every board I sanded, felt like reclaiming not just the space, but myself. I also started volunteering at the local community center, teaching life skills workshops to teenagers from difficult backgrounds, kids who reminded me of myself. Kids who needed someone to show them that they could build something good, even when their family situation was a disaster. It gave me purpose beyond my own pain. I met new people, made real friends who valued me for who I was, not what I could give them. I started dating again, carefully and slowly. I met a woman named Elaine at a volunteer event. She worked as a teacher and had her own story of overcoming family trauma. We understood each other in a way that felt rare and precious. Reconnecting with my mother's memory became important too. I started writing in a journal, recording every memory I had of her. The time she taught me to bake cookies and we burnt the first batch. The way she would sing off-key while gardening. How she always knew when I had a bad day at school and would make hot chocolate without me asking. I planted more roses in the garden, the yellow ones she loved most. I created a photo album with pictures of just the two of us, moments captured before cancer and before everything fell apart. Looking at those photos, I felt her pride. She would have been proud of how I stood my ground, how I honored her wishes, how I built a life worth living. The lessons from this experience became clearer over time. I learned that you can love your family from a distance if they are toxic. That saying no is not selfish when someone is asking you to sacrifice your well-being for their convenience. That nobody, not even your own father, has the right to take what you have built just because they want it. I learned that neglect leaves scars that last decades and that choices have consequences. My father chose Sandra and Jessica over me repeatedly, and now he lives with the consequence of that choice, which is loneliness and regret. I learned that karma is real, but not in some magical sense. It is simply the natural result of actions. Sandra's greed and willingness to commit crimes led directly to her criminal record, her divorce, and her isolation. Tom's neglect and final act of betrayal led to him losing everyone. Jessica's willingness to learn and grow led to her finding strength she did not know she had. And my choice to stand firm, to protect what was mine, to honor my mother's legacy, led to me having a peaceful home and a life built on my own terms. 2 years have passed since that terrible Saturday when they first demanded my house. I still live here in the home my mother left me, but it is different now. The rooms are filled with light and laughter. Elaine moved in 6 months ago, after we got engaged. We are planning a small wedding in the garden next spring. We host dinners for friends, game nights, holiday gatherings. The house that was once just a memorial to loss has become a celebration of life. I rarely hear from Tom. He sends a text on my birthday, and at Christmas, brief messages that I respond to politely, but without warmth. The anger has faded, replaced by something closer to indifference. Jessica sends photos of Emma occasionally. The baby is adorable, all chubby cheeks and bright eyes. Jessica looks tired, but happy in the pictures, proud of what she is building for her daughter. We are not close, but there is a mutual respect between us now. She learned that being manipulated by toxic people only leads to pain, and she chose to break that cycle. I respect that. Sometimes I wonder if Emma will grow up hearing stories about the uncle who refused to give up his house. I hope Jessica tells her the whole truth, not just Sandra's version. I hope Emma learns that standing up for yourself, even when family pressure is immense, is not cruelty. It is survival. I think about my mother often, especially when I sit in her rocking chair with my morning coffee watching the sun rise over the garden. I kept my promise, Mom. I took care of the house. But more than that, I took care of myself. I did not let them bully me into giving up what was mine. I stood firm, even when it hurt, even when I was called selfish, even when I felt alone. I built a life here, a good life, a life that honors your memory and your sacrifice. Sometimes the greatest gift your family can give you is showing you who not to become. My mother left me more than a house. She left me the strength to stand my ground, the wisdom to know my worth, and the courage to walk away from toxicity, even when it wears the mask of family obligation. And in the end, the best revenge is not anger or bitterness. It is building a life so good that you forget why you were angry in the first place. This house is not just walls and a roof anymore. It is proof that I survived. It is proof that I thrived. It is proof that love, real love, leaves a legacy stronger than greed, manipulation, or neglect. My mother's love built a foundation that no scheme could topple, and that more than any legal victory is what carries me forward every single day. Now, I want to hear from you. Have you ever had to stand up to toxic family members who felt entitled to something that was yours? How did you handle it? Drop your story in the comments below, because I know I am not alone in this experience. If this story resonated with you, please hit that like button and share this video with someone who might need to hear it. Subscribe to this channel for more real-life stories about overcoming family drama and standing up for yourself. Thank you so much for listening to my story. I hope it reminded you that you have the right to protect what is yours, and that setting boundaries with family is not betrayal, it is self-respect. Wishing you all the strength to stand firm in your own lives, and the peace that comes from knowing your worth. Take care of yourselves out there.